We're talking about parental leave. And I know that's a hot topic because, particularly if you are listening to this from the United States, many people don't have a lot of resources when it comes to maternity, paternity, and some people are going back to work 2, 6 weeks and even less. And so I think many people aren't getting the kinds of resources they could be getting because they don't have the know how, which is why I wanted you to come on, Ariana, because you are an author. You talk about these things all the time. Can you tell people a little bit about what you do, your business, and how you help people navigate things like parental leave?
Sure. So we're getting right into the topic that is at the heart of my work, parental leave planning. I got into this work after working in the formal health system in the maternal child health space. And when I went out into private practice and started working with folks, I quickly realized that even though I was working in the postpartum space, the number one issue that kept on coming up was actually around parental leave policy and the structures that do and don't exist, for the most part, don't, particularly for self employed folks who I started working primarily with. And so I built out a business back in 2013 focusing on parental leave planning and have worked with lots of folks around the world. But like you said, the US is a particularly gnarly place to be thinking about how you craft a parental leave plan in the absence of infrastructure.
Yeah, so most of my listeners know this, but the ones that don't, I live half time in France and half time in the States. And it's completely night and day what families can expect to get as far as resources when it comes to returning to work, being home with kids, and just even like the care that you get for your kids once you have your children. And so, to be quite frank, our paternity situation pretty much sucks in the US. So, I think anytime we can get information that people can either maximize the benefits they get through their companies or just understand things they should be reaching out for that they aren't. With your work, what do you see as some things that people just don't know about or don't take advantage of that they should be when it comes to parental leave?
Yeah, well, I think what you were just talking about of just not knowing how bad it is. And a lot of
Right.
people in the US don't think about parental leave until you're faced with trying to access it. And then you realize, wow, the US is the only high income country in the world that does not have federally mandated leave. And so that means that the government does not have a policy that covers that says we want to provide our citizens with the support needed to welcome a new member of their family. What we have in the US is FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act, which was established back in the early 90s under the Clinton administration. And that is basically a job protection clause. So it means you have access to 12 weeks of unpaid leave as related to a family medical need. So that is often what childbirth falls into, but other kinds of leave fall under that as well. But the reality is that there's all these clauses that you have to be at a company of over 50 people. You have to have been there for over a year. And so most people don't even have access to unpaid leave and job
Mhm.
protection. So, state by state, there are some states that have filled the gaps. And like you were mentioning, there are companies that have opted to fill the gaps. And so, a lot
Mhm.
of people who have access to parental leave tend to have it either through a paid state level program or their employer.
And so for people who are listening to this and already have children who are already screwed, that's one thing. But for the ones who are thinking about having kids, what should they be doing now to understand or maximize or get themselves ready for being able to get some semblance of a parental leave if they don't know where to start?
Yeah. So the very first thing is you can look up whether you are in a state that has a paid leave program. There's a great website called abetterbalance.org that has a family leave comparative chart. But I always have my notes ready next to me because there are states that are really quickly being added to the list. And so the states that currently have active programs are Rhode Island, California, New Jersey, New York, the District of Columbia, Washington State, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Oregon, and Colorado. Those last few, Connecticut, Oregon, and Colorado, are actually just rolling them out. So those state programs are kind of being built in real time. And they're pretty much every couple of months, the past few years, you've seen new states say, we just passed a leave policy, which often means like 3 to 5 years from now, they will start rolling out a program.
Right. Well, I mean, at least that means that things are changing and we are starting to see the importance of prioritizing new families, new children, new parents, etc.